Everybody, welcome back to my channel. Okay, let's not beat around the bush. Let's just go ahead and address the big elephant in the room. I look like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air right now. Do I not? There's obviously one big thing that's on all of our minds right now, stressing everybody out. I can't say the name of it or YouTube will be like, no go, and will probably like demonetize or take down my video. But I think you all know what I'm referring to. And I just wanted to say, I'm right there with you. Everybody's real stressed, including me. I'm immunosuppressed, so things have been a little bit cray over in my world. Anyway, since the last few weeks have been pretty intense, I figured maybe right now is not the time to do like the serial killer, everybody dies type of story. Probably get more into those intense stories like in the coming weeks, but I thought we'd keep it lighthearted this week because it's been a little bit intense for everybody, but still keep it crime related. So that brings me to one of my other favorite subjects, which is con artists. I am super fascinated by con artists. They say that 1 in every 30 people is a sociopath, and I think that you would have to be a sociopath to pull off what a lot of these people do. Like, you would just have to not care about anybody else's feelings, have like zero empathy for anybody, or just have like a complete lack of understanding of the consequences of your actions. I'm just super fascinated in how you can have like the natural ability to con your way into living like these lavish lifestyles, and like how they come about, like the skills, if that makes sense, to just like fool people into believing like whatever you tell them. I'm a terrible liar. I think most people are pretty bad liars. We all have like tells and stuff when we lie. So the fact that you could get away with like lie after lie after lie, like pathologically, and then it kind of like be involved with money, which I feel like is something that people like are, they hold on to so tightly. So then to like be able to finagle your way with a bank or with, today's story, some really intense stuff, and be able to like pull it off is just so crazy to me. And since we're all stuck inside right now and binging a lot of TV and movies, I thought that I would cover a case that is so wild that they actually made a movie about it. And that movie is Catch Me If You Can. It's such a good movie. If you don't already have it on your must binge list for your quarantine, if you haven't seen it, you definitely have to. It's got Tom Hanks, Leonardo DiCaprio, really good movie, incredible acting. And I definitely recommend it because at the time when I saw it, I did not know that it was a real story, and then found out later, like, this is a legit thing that actually happened. And the stuff that happens in the movie is like so crazy that you like could hardly believe it. You're just like, oh, they're just, embellishing. No, this is how crazy the story is, and it gets crazier than even what the movie covers. And that is the story of Frank Abagnale Jr. Frank Abagnale Jr. was born April 27th of 1948. He lived with his 3 siblings and his parents Paulette and Frank in Bronxville, New York. He actually recalls that he had a super stable childhood, like dream childhood, and was like super attached to his dad. His dad was a businessman who owned his own business, was really involved in the community and politics, and would travel all the time and would bring Frank along with him, and they would go traveling, and he would learn all about white collar business and just picked up a lot of stuff from his dad, really had a close connection with his dad. But due to all of this absence and all of the travel, eventually Frank's mom kind of grew tired of this and ended up leaving his dad. Now, this put a lot of strain on the family. All 3 kids, the dad was totally stressed out, and while Paulette was trying to gain her independence, this put Frank Sr. on the road even more, taking Frank Jr. along with him, and he picked up a lot of the tricks and tips that he ended up using later in his criminal activity on the road. So Frank's criminal career actually started when he was just a teenager. When he was out on the road with his dad, he would use his dad's gas card to steal money, like cash back. So even though he was only like 15 years old, he would convince these gas station workers to give him cash back on his dad's card, Frank Sr., and he would pocket the cash, and he was actually making like a really good living. He also did a lot of petty crime like shoplifting during this time. Little did Frank know that his dad was actually like super financially tight, and after getting the bill for his gas card, realized something wasn't adding up and caught Frank red-handed stealing from him. Obviously, his parents were devastated that he was acting like this, and so they went ahead and sent him to a school for wayward boys when he was 16 years old. Frank did not like the idea of this. He was not having it, and so he ended up just leaving home. Think about what you had at 16, or maybe you are a teenager right now as you're watching this. I mean, he had nothing to his name at all. No money, no job. I mean, he had a driver's license and that was it. He was able to get a couple lower paying jobs like a lot of teenage boys do, but they were just not cutting it for what Frank wanted. He wanted something even better paying. So he ended up forging his age on his driver's license, so instead of it saying 16, it said 26. With this small change, he was able to get even better jobs, and I think that this was the moment that inspired him when he realized, oh, well, I was able to get away with that. What little more can I get away with? Even with all these great jobs that were coming in now that he had his new age, it still wasn't enough to pay the bills. So he started writing checks that he just could not cash. And he dug himself a hole several $1,000s deep. Now remember, this is like the 70s, so several $1,000s is a lot more in today's money. And also remember, he's a 16-year-old kid. I really feel like he had no idea, like, the depth of what he was doing, or really understood, like, hey, you can't just write checks that you, like, can't cash and just keep cashing in these checks and stealing money from these banks just because you're charismatic. So when he realized the seriousness of what he had done, he decided that he needed to hit the road and go undercover and kind of come up with a new alias. He decided that he wanted to still keep cashing checks, but he knew that walking in as a 16-year-old boy, even with his 26-year-old ID, it was just not gonna cut it. He needed to come off as more trustworthy, as somebody dependable, and for some reason, he decided that that persona was as an airplane pilot, as a pilot. I don't understand. So he forged a fake pilot's license. Yeah, went that far, and all the documents that came along with it. He even went as far as to call Pan Am and say that he was a pilot who had lost his uniform while traveling, and Pan Am just gave him a new one. Like, what? He forged an employee badge, he had all of the paperwork, and he even did research. Frank did not have a formal education, but he was a really smart guy. He would pretend to be a teenager working on a school project and would go in and interview pilots, try to get in and learn more about how they operate the planes and how to pass off as a pilot, the whole persona, so he could really take everything on. At this time, Frank also was growing gray hairs. Not even kidding, he started getting gray hair as a teenager. So he used this to his advantage with the whole persona of a stressed out pilot. He flew as a passenger on planes for more than 1,000,000 miles. 1,000,000 miles. And at every single stop in all 26 countries that he visited, he stayed at hotels and ate for free, all on the airline's bill. But Pan Am was on to Frank though, and so were the police, and Frank figured so, and he knew that he had to come up with a new fake persona pretty fast, and decided to be a doctor. He went from one, like, very dependable, don't want to mess it up or you're going to kill a lot of people profession, to another, don't want to mess it up or you're going to kill a lot of people profession. These high-risk professions, I do not understand. And he literally pulled it off. He even had like this interaction with another doctor where he thought his cover was blown. And the doctor was so impressed by him that he invited him to work at a hospital. He knew though that he was not cut out to be a doctor. He had no formal education whatsoever. So he got the heck out of Dodge pretty fast. So over his time conning people, he worked as a pilot, a university teacher, a physician, and an attorney, all under different names, different stories, forging every document necessary along the way. Eventually, he decided that he had had enough of this crazy lifestyle of hopping from place to place, and he wanted to live the straight and narrow life. So he moved to France, settled down, and quit cashing all these checks. But by this time, he had already cashed like millions of dollars of checks. Frank was successfully living with his head down in Montpellier, France, when an ex-girlfriend of his recognized a wanted poster with his face on it and turned him into the police. Now, if you think Frank was just gonna go with the police and that's the end of this story, you're dead wrong. Frank successfully escaped the police, not just once, but twice. The first time, while being deported back to the United States from Europe, he was able to hop off of a moving plane on the runway, jump a fence, get a cab, make it all the way to the train station to get to Canada before he was taken into custody by the Royal Mounted Police of Canada and returned back to the United States. He also escaped from a federal detention center in April of 1971 for a couple weeks after being mistaken for an undercover prison inspector. He convinced a friend on the outside to bring him some forged documents and was able to walk out of the prison by handing the forged documents over to the police in the station and saying, "I've got an emergency, I'm an undercover cop, you gotta let me out." And they let him free. They let him walk out of the prison. He was almost able to escape to Brazil, and he was actually out of the federal detention center for about 2 weeks when he was apprehended by the NYPD when they spotted him from an unmarked car. So he ended up serving 5 years of his 12-year sentence, and he was released only on the condition that he would help the FBI investigate any scam artist for free. So after his release, Frank, was trying several jobs, just trying to live the straight and narrow lifestyle. He actually was living, I believe, in Oklahoma and was trying, he was trying to be a cook. He was trying, lots of different types of positions, but nothing was really panning out. He just had no formal education, and he was just not cut out for, work in retail after everything that he had been through. So he had the idea to go to a bank and offer to give them a lecture for free about scam artists, and he offered to them that if they found any of the information useful, they could give him $50 and any names of any contact information of any other bank in the area. He ended up doing this from bank to bank to bank, and eventually became like a scam advisor for lots of banks. So Frank went from swindling people into cashing bad checks to starting his own legitimate business, and he's now the AARP Fraud Watch Ambassador. Yeah, talk about turning, the story around. He even co-hosts a podcast called The Perfect Scam, which is about scam artists, how to avoid them, what kind of tactics they use to try to get you. He wrote several books about scam artists. One's called Scam Me If You Can, kind of like Catch Me If You Can. Obviously, what Frank did was super not okay. He put a lot of people's lives at risk. He lost a lot of money for people. That's not okay. He definitely deserved to go to jail. But if this is not a redemption story, I really don't know what is. Also, he really was like a child whenever this all started. He was a teenager. I just really don't think that he understood the gravity of the kinds of decisions that he was making. From the time that his criminal career started to when it ended, he was only 21. It was just 5 years. Just think about the kind of state of mind that you're in at that time in your life. It's not an excuse for poor behavior. It's just nobody died. Nothing, money was lost. That sucks, but could have been worse, Nobody got hurt. So tell me in a comment below, do you think Frank should have gotten a longer amount of jail time? Do you think that he redeemed himself? Or do you think he should have served the full 12 years? Do you think that this was fair? A lot of people don't think it's fair. Some people think he should have gone for longer because of the whole pilot thing. You put hundreds of people's lives in your hands when you're piloting an airplane or as a doctor, impersonating a doctor. But has he done more good than harm now? Who can say? And that's all that I have for this one. So what other cases do you think I should cover in this series? And obviously it doesn't have to just be serial killers or con artists. It could be any other kind of, true crime case. What do you guys want to see? Let me know in a comment down below. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.